You're listening to episode 70, Sara's Story, Telling Your Child That You Have Cancer. Hi, and welcome to the Child Life On Call podcast. When your child is sick, the whole world seems to stop in its tracks. Plans and priorities change, and your number one job becomes figuring out how to get your child well again. For some of us, rest, medications, and relaxation can do the trick. But for others, it takes more. It takes countless doctor appointments, invasive medical testing, therapy, surgeries, the list goes on, and then you still may not have all of the answers or results you were hoping for. This podcast features parents of children that have an illness or medical condition and gives them a place to share their own journeys and experiences. We will talk about the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, but one thing seems to remain the same. Children are resilient and teach us more about ourselves and the world than we could ever imagine. Thank you so much for lending a listening ear and opening up your heart to these families and this podcast. I'm your host, Katie Taylor.
And I said, have you heard the word cancer before? And she said, no, but are you going to die?
Hello, my friends. I'm so happy that you're here this week. I'm honored to introduce you to Sara, whom is another amazing internet friend of mine that I had the pleasure of meeting and connecting with on social media. When I started this process, I would have had no idea about the amazing people that I would meet and come across that are just literally true, such authentic people doing amazing things. So it's pretty common on this podcast for us to discuss, obviously, children that have medical needs or an illness or have an injury in some way. And now we're actually going to flip the reverse for this episode. And we're going to be talking about what happens when the parent is the patient. The parent is the one that's sick. Sara was diagnosed with stage 2 invasive ductal carcinoma at just 34 years old as a single mother of a 6-year-old. That's a lot to unpack just in that one sentence. And in our conversation today, you'll get to hear about some of the medical stuff, her medical journey going through it, what this experience was like, how the news was delivered to her while she was alone on an ultrasound table. She talks about kind of the diagnosis, the painful surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. And then we get into the nitty-gritty of how in the world do you deliver that kind of news to the people you love, including your own young daughter. To piggyback on this episode today, next week you're going to hear our first Child Life on Call 12-minute talk. And basically this is just a quick session, a quick little conversation that we're going to reveal as another podcast episode that gets into how do you deliver crazy, unexpected, scary, unsettling news to children. And we're going to talk about telling your child that you have cancer on that episode as well. So I'm so thankful to Sara that you're here, and stay tuned at the end. You're going to hear all about her amazing organization that she's created and is actually creating resources for other parents and other kids going through similar situations. It's called Mighty and Bright. All right, let's get started.
My name is Sara, and I live in Northern California, and I was born and raised here and then moved to Oregon with my parents when I was in high school, went to college there, and then came right back to Northern California because I missed the weather so much, and had my daughter here. And then when she was 2, I went through a divorce from her dad, and she ended up with some pretty serious anxiety, which was really rough. And we were just kind of coming out the other end of that when she was 6. I met my partner, and he has a daughter as well. And then I was diagnosed, and I went through chemo and radiation and all that. And now we are a blended family living in the wine country here. So it's me, my partner, my daughter, his daughter, and our dog, Honey.
Oh, I love that name, Honey. I saw you write that. I was like, that is adorable.
Yeah, she's really sweet.
Yeah. Well, so talk to us about, you just discussed a little bit about how your daughter had a little bit of underlying anxiety. And gosh, we all know that's so common these days. Just so many of us dealing with it. And I think what's great is that we're just actually talking about it and normalizing it rather than pretending like it doesn't exist and everything's fine. So I really just
Absolutely.
want to thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that, because I think a lot of parents can feel alone. Like, why is my child anxious? Or, everybody else's kids are doing just fine. And that's really just not the case. So first of all, thank you for being brave enough to say it.
Yeah, no, it's not the case at all. And actually, I was just speaking with breast care coordinator at my healthcare company, and she was saying that they're talking about this a lot in her practice. Just that it's not a matter of whether or not your child has anxiety; it's a matter of what the degree of it is. So
Yeah.
it's really common.
And sorry, just taking us back to when you received your diagnosis, your daughter was 6 and you were living with your partner at that time, so you guys were a family unit.
Actually, no.
Okay.
We had just met like
Okay.
7 months before that.
Got
And
it.
so when I was diagnosed, I was sharing custody with my ex, and my daughter was on her way to spend the weekend with him. And I have a family history of cancer. Every woman in my family has had it. And so I was really advocating for early detection, and they wouldn't give it to me until
Hmm.
my mom was diagnosed the year before, because they said that I didn't have a first degree relative who had it. And that's basically because my dad's sister passed away from breast cancer, but she didn't count as a first degree relative. And so I was really advocating for myself for early detection. And I went and finally ended up getting clearance to be a part of a program. And it was my baseline MRI that found something kind of funny. And my doctor had kind of prepped me that happens. There are often false positives and that I shouldn't worry about it. So I went in for a diagnostic mammogram and ultrasound on at 4 p.m. on a Friday. My daughter was on her way to her dad, and I was completely alone. And I was laying on this ultrasound table, and I asked the doctor, am I going to need a biopsy? And he was real quiet, and he said, do you want me to be frank? And I was like, oh, that doesn't sound good. And I said, yeah, please. And he said, what I'm seeing can be nothing other than cancer. You will definitely need a biopsy. So I had no one. My boyfriend at the time, he had his daughter for the weekend. And so he lived in a different city. And my daughter was with her dad, and my parents live in Oregon. And so luckily, the doctor was kind enough to talk to my parents on the phone and explain to them what was going on, because I was in so much shock, I couldn't even process what was happening. So I was very much alone.
Oh my gosh, I'm just thinking back to these moments that happen on an ultrasound table for so many families, right? Just these life
Hmm.
changing moments and conversations, and how terrifying that must have been.
Yes, and luckily, the nursing staff was really, really kind. Really tried to be present with me and kind of hold me while I was crying. I think the main thing that was an issue for me was, as I am my daughter's person. As a kid with anxiety, a lot of it manifested into separation anxiety, and my number one thought was her. And I just thought, how are we going to handle this? And the doctor thought it was early stage, so I was thinking, okay, like, how are we going to handle the logistics of our lives? Until he said, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking you're going to die. And I was like, no,
Oh my
I
gosh.
wasn't, but now I am.
Oh.
And immediately went to a vision of like her tear-stained face at my funeral and went down a
Oh,
really terrible rabbit hole.
yeah, of course you
Um,
did. Oh,
yeah, so that wasn't super great.
yeah. Well, so talk to us about, this. We typically have children's diagnoses, but many of us have been touched by someone who has had breast cancer or someone in our lives who has had cancer. Talk to us about what they did tell you about your exact case and what treatment was going to be like.
Well, initially, they thought my cancer was early stage. So I went in, and part of the reason why I was really advocating for that early detection was I had kind of a bad feeling. Just like my intuition was like, something's not right. I had a sensation of breast milk being let down. Like just kind of, it was weird. And I thought, this is strange. And I had gone to a doctor, and she's like, that's not a symptom of breast cancer. And I just was like, I don't know, I just don't feel great about this. And um, when they looked at my MRI and when they looked at the ultrasound, I had ductal carcinoma in situ, which is basically cancer of the milk duct. And that sensation that I was feeling was the cancer cells basically moving in my milk duct.
Wow.
And so by the time I had that MRI, it took up 5 inches in my breast. And so they knew immediately that I would need to have that breast removed because there was no lump. There was no way to remove the cancer without removing the entire breast. And I knew just because I had 2 aunts and 2 grandmothers and a mother who had breast cancer, I did not want either one of my breasts. So I immediately was like, I will definitely take a double mastectomy. And they moved me through just kind of what I now know is just kind of like a assembly line of cancers where there's certain ways that they treat you, and you know they kind of take you down different paths depending on what your diagnosis is. And mine was hormone positive, and I'm young. I was 34 when I was diagnosed, and there was very much a feeling that reconstruction is just what you do. And so I wasn't a candidate for breast reconstruction using my own tissue. And so um, they were just like, oh, well, we're going to do breast reconstruction using implants. And I think I was in so much shock because I was doing surgery first, thinking that this was early stage. I didn't have a lot of time to think about it. And the fact that like I'm really um, sensitive. Obviously, I
Mm.
felt like cancer moving in my breast. Like I'm really sensitive to medications, chemicals, give me migraines. So I didn't even think about the fact that maybe there might have been another option other than immediate reconstruction using implants. And so I went in for surgery, and part of the way that they do this is they put these tissue expanders in underneath your muscles, and they're basically like these hard plastic things that they then fill up with saline to make room for implants that will be replaced later. And they were horribly painful, and I woke up in terrible pain. And and I just remember thinking like this is just like normal, like this is what surgery is like. I'd never had surgery other than having my tonsils out when I was in second grade. um, and when I woke up, I had a feeling that the cancer was spreading. Again, I was having that feeling, kind of moving to a bigger area. And so when I woke up, I was in pain, and my mom was at the end of my bed, and I said, did they find more cancer? And she said, yes. I'm so sorry they did. It's in your lymph nodes. And I wasn't really surprised. And so that was when we changed my treatment. So instead of just having that double mastectomy, it became immediately chemo, and then after that, radiation. And I couldn't have those tissue expanders removed until after my radiation was completed. And so it was a full year of having these hard implants in, and they were rubbing up against my ribs and like creating a bunch of scar tissue. And it was by far the worst part of my whole treatment was those expanders.
Oh
And
my
so I was able to
gosh.
get those removed, but then I hated the implants. And so about a year after the whole thing was done, I had the implants removed, and now I'm completely flat.
Oh my gosh. And it's like the kickoff to this whole journey is this incredibly painful experience. It's like, and recovering from pain like that isn't easy.
No, it's not. And it didn't, having those expanders in really didn't help at all because going through chemo is really difficult to sleep a lot of times. And it was compounded for me by the fact that I couldn't get comfortable
Yeah.
because these things were in my chest underneath. They were like between my ribs and underneath the muscles in my chest. Like they
Mm.
literally you remove your muscles from your chest wall and put the expanders underneath them. So it was not making chemo or radiation or any of it any easier, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can't even imagine what that pain feels like. And like you said, on top of medication like chemotherapy, if you're already sensitive, it's hard to even imagine.
Yeah, I'm very grateful not to have those anymore.
Talk to us a little bit about how, after you received the diagnosis, how you delivered news to your family, your close friends, and your daughter, who was 6 years old.
Well, the first thing I did was not advisable. I actually texted my boyfriend from the biopsy table because that is how much shock I was in. I was I texted him and I was like, "So it is cancer, but the good news is it's early stage and it's not invasive." Like I had no idea what any of that meant.
Right, right. Those are just the key words you're hearing.
Yes, yes, and the poor guy is like, oh my God, I just got a text message that my essentially new girlfriend has cancer.
Oh,
Um, so I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I apologize to him for doing that. And he's like, please, Sarah, do not worry about this. Like,
oh.
you were in shock, and it's a shocking thing that happened to you, and you were all by yourself. Like, don't worry about that.
Sarah, I don't know that I would
Um,
have done anything different. Like, I 100% would have done that too. Like, oh my gosh, 100%. I think that
okay,
texting your
good.
boyfriend
I'm
about
glad.
that would be better than texting your mom those words on that table.
Excellent point. And I did call my mother from the table. So I called her and my dad, and I said, I'm here in the radiation or the radiology department, and I don't understand what's going on, but he says I have cancer. Can I please have you talk to him?
Oh,
And
wow.
luckily, my dad he's retired now, but he was a doctor, and my mom was a nurse. And so they had the medical knowledge, not to mention the personal experience,
Mm.
to be able to understand what the doctor was saying. And I think I was in pretty terrible shock for probably 3 or 4 days where I wasn't really registering what was happening to me. And I've never been so grateful to be divorced because I was able to take that time away from my daughter and just process what was happening,
Mm.
without needing to worry about her wondering, because, kids can really understand something's going on. They read the energy in your room really well. So that was great, as far as bad diagnoses go. So I didn't have to talk to her right away. And I did end up calling my friends. My mom came down right away from Oregon, and I called my closest friends and really couldn't process why it was that they were bursting into tears. Because I was like, this is like, it's not really cancer. It's like baby cancer. It's like not even cancer, you guys. Like, don't
Mm-hmm.
worry about it.
You taking care of
It's
them as you're getting
and
diagnosed. Yeah.
I'm not really processing. Like when I look back on it, it's like I think I thought it was you know how Scooby Doo goes into goes into researching all of these like ghostly things, and then it like looks really scary, but then it turns out to be like a dog or something that's
Yes.
not scary.
Yeah.
I just kind of convinced myself I had like Scooby Doo cancer, where it was like it sounds really bad, you guys, but it's not actually as bad. It's okay.
I, I
Like,
love it's like your ability to protect yourself
yes.
comes out through a Scooby Doo metaphor, and I love that.
Yes. And then I was like, all I need are some like Scooby snacks and everything's gonna be
That's it.
fine,
It's
you
going to be fine. Yeah, for sure.
guys. Yeah. So then as time went on, I started to realize like, okay, I think I need to explain this to my daughter. I wanted to make sure that I had some information before I shared it with her. So my mom was visiting. She basically moved in with us, and when I found out that I had a surgery date, that was when I decided that I wanted to tell my daughter because I had some information about what was going on, and I had a next step. And so I immediately ordered a bunch of books, on Amazon and from the library. Uh, and I'm not sure what I was really expecting, but those books didn't provide it for me. I really wanted to explain to her what cancer actually is, and none of those books did that. And so I ended up kind of coming up with my own analogy for it, or I mean, it wasn't even so much of an analogy, it's just explaining what cancer is. I'm basically saying to her, our bodies are made up of all these tiny little guys called cells, and they're so small you can't even see them, but they're basically like Legos, like they're building blocks that your body is made of. But they're really cool because one guy can make another guy anytime he wants, and so your body is constantly making new cells, and each one of them has a job. They make your heartbeat, and they make up your skin, and they do all this cool stuff. And I said, but sometimes one of the cells gets made and it's like broken, and it doesn't remember what its job is, and the only thing it knows how to do is make more. And before long, there's a whole bunch of these little guys, and none of them have any idea what they're supposed to be doing. So they're just all hanging out, making more guys faster and faster. And I said, when that happens, it makes it really hard for the cells who are doing their jobs to have room to do their jobs. And so you have to get those broken cells out of your body. And I said, so those broken cells are called cancer. And I said, have you heard the word cancer before? And she said, no, but are you going to die? And I was kind of amazed that she went straight there. And I said, no, I'm not going to die. I only have like one little guy in my breast. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have my breast removed. And I said, and the reason why I'm going to do that is because I want to make sure that there's no more of those little guys hiding in there. And I'm going to have both of them removed because I don't want just one breast. And she said, so you're not going to die? And I said, no. And she was like, okay. And so she goes running out of her room, goes up to my boyfriend. She goes, Mommy has something. I don't remember what it is, but she's not going to die, and I'm fine.
Oh my gosh. What a cutie. Oh
And
gosh.
so, and that explanation also kind of served as a foundation, because then when I woke up and found out that it had moved, then I was able to say to her, remember how I told you that, I only had one guy? Well, it turns out I had more than one guy. He had already made some friends, and they had like basically packed up and were going to move to other parts of my body. And so we want to make sure that we get rid of all of them. And so I'm going to get some medicine, and the medicine is going to make sure there aren't any more of those guys anywhere else. And then I was kind of able to say, the medicine isn't super smart. And so it will get rid of some of the good cells in addition to some of the bad cells, which means some things are going to make my body feel uncomfortable, and my hair is probably going to fall out. It's an ongoing conversation. It's not just a one and done sort of situation. But that analogy or that explanation really allowed me to build on the first conversation, so that she understood really what scientifically was happening. And that took some of the fear out of it, because it was a real concrete thing that she could understand. It was helpful.
Right. It's not so ambiguous, unknown. What's happening inside there. Like, you gave her
Mm-hmm.
a visualization of
Yeah,
what is happening
exactly.
inside. And that just makes it so much easier. It reminds me a lot of an analogy we do in the field of child life when we're explaining cancer. And we'll take a big paper that's like a body cutout, and we'll do red, different, those like dot paints that you have, and you push it down and it
Oh,
makes a
yeah.
circle. So we'll do red
Yeah.
dot paints for blood cells, and then we'll do a little bit of blue, which looks like cancer, and then the black is chemotherapy. They get rid of some of the blue and some of the red. So it's
Mm,
just kind of that analogy that you're
yeah.
stating. And how you're able to do this, I can do this and visualize and say it because I've been trained. So the fact that you're in a state of shock, diagnosed with a life-threatening illness, and you could come up with that is just miraculous.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very helpful. It was very helpful. And I think when I was looking for books, the fact that there wasn't anything out there for that really surprised me at the time.
We'll be right back. Hey guys, did you know Child Life on Call is more than just a podcast? We have free resources for parents, kids, and professionals. And by the way, a new app coming out in 2022. We will be partnering with facilities to empower and educate kids, parents, and the care team, and we want you to be a part of it. Sign up to have the facility you visit or work for be one of the first to have access at childlifeoncall.com. So let's talk about some of the hard parts of being a single parent. You said your mom moved in to help, I'm guessing, help care for your daughter, and also care for you. Those
Mm-hmm.
days before surgery and those days after surgery, when you have a very busy 6-year-old, how did you manage your time with her, your time taking care of yourself? How did you do all of that?
As a single parent, I would say the skill that I learned in the 4 years at that point that I've been doing it by myself, because she saw her dad every other weekend, and I did everything myself, and it became my superpower to do everything myself. And nobody helped me, um, and so when I was faced with anything, my answer was always do more, do more, do more. There was never any ask for help or do less. And so it immediately was like my whole life was like a house of cards, and it came crashing down. And I could not do it myself anymore because I mentally was in a completely different place. I became obsessed about getting a new couch. I was like, I am, I can't control anything, and I am going to focus on getting a new couch because I'm going through surgery and I need to sit somewhere comfortable.
Yes.
This is the stuff that my brain did.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was really, and then once I got the couch, I lost it.
Yeah.
I, my daughter was at school. I remember I got the couch delivered. My mom was sitting in a chair across from me as I'm sitting on the couch, and I was like, I just burst into tears, and I was like, what am I going to do now? Um, and she's like, we're just going to take it one step at a time.
Mm.
And so that's what I did was I took it one step at a time, and I made a conscious decision to stop trying to do everything myself. And so that meant I I also knew that I needed to involve people in my daughter's school, um, in a way that was like, you need to understand we're having something happen at home. And if something is going on with her behavior wise, like this is why. And so I went into the school and I said, I need you to provide support to my daughter because I've been diagnosed with breast cancer, and I don't know if she's going to have like increased anxiety or what is happening. And so then the school counselor told me to tell her teacher. So I talked to her teacher, and then I talked to the woman at the front desk of who at the school, and she said, you know what, I am a breast cancer survivor as well. I just
Mm.
finished radiation, and this is what you need to do. You need to sign up for free lunch. And I said, I don't need free lunch. I'm going to be on disability. Like I have the money. And she was like, you need to sign up for free lunch.
Yeah.
And I said, why do I need to do that? And she said, because you do not need to be thinking about lunch.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. So she gives me the paper and she's like, fill it out. So I fill out free lunch. She said, because you're on disability, you qualify for this. She submitted it and my daughter got free lunch. And oh my God, that was such good advice.
Oh,
Because I couldn't think about free lunch.
no.
And I signed up for community programs that delivered food to us. Um, and then the big one was I announced to my friends on Facebook that I had cancer. And I don't know what possessed me to do that. I basically shared that I had been diagnosed, and then I went and took a shower. And while I was in the shower, I was like having a major vulnerability hangover. And I was like, why did I do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? Nobody needs to know. So I'm like, okay, when I get out of the shower, I'm going to go delete that post because, like, what am I? Like some kind of I felt like an attention whore kind of. So I went back to delete the post, and the amount of support that I received, like already in that like 5 minutes, made me feel so like such part of a community of people I didn't ever expect to be supportive. I got a bunch of messages, direct messages from people who said, I never shared, but my wife had this last year. I never shared, but my mom had this. Let me send you this. Let me tell you about this. And it was the beginning of my really understanding that people want to bless other people. They want to help. And if you say no, you rob them of that opportunity to do something that makes them feel good. And as hard as it was for me to accept help from people, it was the best thing that I could have done.
Oh, wow. I love how you put that. I love how you put
It was
that.
a big lesson, big lesson.
Did your daughter see the helpers come out? Did she start to recognize you saying no more? Or for her, what was she able to grasp about that?
She saw the love for sure, especially in that my mom basically moved in with us for a year, and my boyfriend basically moved in with us, and my friends were incredibly kind and would bring over. I had one girlfriend who she came over right after my diagnosis and left like these parfaits in my refrigerator. I had no idea that she had done that. And she just came over, and then the next morning I opened up the fridge and she had left all these breakfasts for me.
Oh,
So I
that
really
is so
tried
sweet.
to, it was amazing. I
Oh,
had another friend
gosh.
who was like, I felt like you needed everything related to unicorns. And so I went to Paper Source and I got this like unicorn bag and I filled it up with everything related to unicorns in Paper Source and I just bought everything and I dropped it off. Okay? Like, that's amazing.
I love that. Oh, I love both of those things. And for a lot of people listening, they're like, what can I do? I don't even know how to start, where to begin. But those are very two simple things, which you're still talking about
Hmm.
now. I mean, they clearly had an impact on you.
Yes. Yes. And the other thing I think was really amazing, if anybody is looking to do something to help someone, my boyfriend's mom sent me a card every week through my entire treatment.
Wow.
And it was like she'd send me stupid cards, she'd send me funny cards, she'd send me thoughtful cards, um, and expected nothing in return, expected no response. Just wanted me to know she was thinking of me, and that really made a big difference to me. I think the key is not expecting anything. My friend who dropped off the unicorn bag dropped it off. My friend who put the parfaits in the fridge left them there. Like there was no expectation for me to, um, you know, it's very, very tiring when you are going through treatment. And I didn't have the energy to have a conversation. And those people wanted to leave me something because they wanted to make me feel good and have no obligation to entertain them or talk to them or get them a glass of water, nothing.
Hmm.
And it was amazing.
Yeah. I just love all of that. And, I was kind of thinking that you stepping back after being your daughter's main source of everything, I was wondering if you thought your daughter noticed or if she just saw everybody else loving on her too. I think as adults, we can think, oh my gosh, she's going to know we're not picking her up at school today. She's going to be distraught for years to come because of this. And
Mm-hmm.
really, like, they're okay. They can get through it and they can bounce back just like you can.
Yes, and I think it was really important that it was me calling on my village because I couldn't do it myself anymore. But I didn't realize at the time how much she needed that village because even at 6, she already felt like she didn't want to tell me things. And I had no idea. Like for crazy hair day at school, she wanted to support me. And so she wore this like scarf on her head that had pink ribbons on it. And she was in second grade. And by that time, so she was 7. And apparently at school, her friends, like, I don't know if they were like malicious in the way that they made fun of her for wearing it, um, but it hurt her feelings. And she didn't tell me. She told my mom and she told my boyfriend. And
Mm.
I was like, afterward, when they both told me that she had told them, I thought, wow, to be 7 and trying to protect her mom. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you guys were here to be a witness to her experience so she didn't bottle it up. It was a
Yeah.
real gift for her, too.
Wow. That is so true. you know, I'm kind of diving deep into these parenting books right now that talk a lot about the village, and I think we know that it takes a village to raise a child, but truly it does. And when we
Hmm.
can get so on top of it, oh, my child needs me, they need it this way, that works for us because it's
Hmm.
uncomfortable for us to ask for help, right? But kids actually
Hmm.
benefit from all of that extra support and extra experiences and different ways of doing things.
Yeah, actually, my partner and I talk about that a lot because we have 2 kids that we share custody of. And to have to be a child of divorce and have exposure to different ways of doing things, like the research actually shows that they grow up and have an easier time having empathy for different kinds of families and the way that they do things because they've already had exposure to more than one way of doing things.
Right.
And so I kind of saw that happening with us too. Like I would allow other parents before, I would never allow anybody to help us, but I would allow for other parents to have my daughter over for a play date or pick her up after school and not feel like I needed to reciprocate because they wouldn't let me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw that benefit and that like there were other ways of doing things, and she was definitely exposed to that, and it was really positive for sure.
So talk to us about the timing of writing. You have 2 books, and I want to hear about them both. Talk to us about what they're about and which audience should order these and get access to them.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So that explanation that I had for my daughter about the broken cells, basically, I started working on that during my treatment because I had gone on disability and I was exhausted and trying to figure out how to, keep myself like with a purpose, basically. And so I had a background in illustration for 6 years. And so I spent my treatment putting together a book. And actually, I have 3 books. So that first book was Cancer Party. Mm-hmm. And I used that explanation and kind of turned it into something silly, where the broken cells are having a party and they're making it really hard for the cells that are working to do their job because they're just like having a party. But when I published that, I felt like it wasn't quite what I really wanted the book on cancer to be, because going through treatment is incredibly chaotic. It's like different people are picking the kid up from school and dropping them off. Different people are, taking you to different activities. She didn't have any idea whether I was going to be exhausted or not. And so I really wanted to find a way to explain to her not just the science of cancer, but then how it would affect a kid's day-to-day life. And so what came out of it was a book called What Happens When Someone I Love Has Cancer. And the book goes through the explanation of cancer, and then using like an illustrated calendar, talks about how we all kind of feel better when we know what to expect each day, and how a parent or any loved one's treatment will affect each day. And so the book is great for parents who have cancer or for the siblings of children with cancer, who often are necessarily, kind of left to the side as their sibling is going through treatment and not necessarily understanding what's happening. It's really great for them. And I have a calendar that goes with that. So that was my big thing, was I had a business making co-parenting calendars for parents who were divorced so that kids would understand when they would see each parent. And so basically when I had cancer, I was like, I need to make a calendar so that kids understand what's happening with treatment each day. And each one has a little button for, what the kid can expect.
Oh,
so
gosh,
I put this up
I love
on my,
that.
Yeah, it was really a game changer for us. And I put it up on my website, which had previously been only about divorce. And I received a message from a woman who had seen, I have a about page on my website that kind of talked about how to talk to kids about hard things and why it's important to talk to kids about hard things, and a bit of my story. And she emailed me and said, that really resonated with me. My daughter has a brain tumor, and I've always wondered if I've told her too much. But she seems to be doing okay, so I guess I'm all right. Mm-hmm. And then she said, but I really wish that you had this calendar for kids with cancer. And I just had full body chills.
Oh.
And I thought, will you help? I said, will you and your daughter help me make it? I said, because this is the one experience I haven't gone through, and I want to make sure I get it right.
Yeah.
And so they helped me figure out what the little buttons would be, for scan day, for, chemo, for radiation, for days at the hospital and days at home. And for both of these calendars, the big thing, at least for me going through treatment, was I was so exhausted. I couldn't figure out how to maintain a like close emotional relationship with my daughter because I was so tired. And so each one of the calendars comes with these little buttons for different low-key activities you can do together, where if you're a parent who's exhausted or your kid is exhausted, you can set a timer for 15 minutes and the child gets to choose, from doing a puzzle or, doing nails or, watching a movie together, things that you can do together to maintain that connection. And so that's what we did.
I love that you've taken the hard part of coming up with the template and the buttons, as you say, and figuring out what needs to go where. And really, it's like a plug and play and use. Like the hard work has been done.
Yes, exactly. And that's, once I put the calendar up, I was like, what do I do with this now? So
Yeah.
so I posted it on Facebook and I was just like, so I made this thing and I don't know what to do with it, but I just feel like, if anybody needs this thing, here it is.
Here it is.
And
Yeah.
one of my friends tagged another one of her friends, and this woman, her son had survived a brain tumor as well. And she's like, oh my God, I can't tell you, I really needed this. And she said, the social worker should have handed this to me when we got to the hospital, because I apparently, like halfway through her son's treatment, a psychologist came in and suggested that she put together this calendar. And she was like, and you can make these you can do printouts and like tape it to the calendar or do little drawings so that he understands what is going to happen each day. And she's like, I can't do that. I am too tired and overwhelmed and stressed out. Like, I can't even know where to begin with that. And she's like, you did it. And now it's like, if every kid could have this, what an amazing thing this would be. And she raised $2,000
Wow.
to have them donated to the hospital where her son was treated. And I was like, that's amazing.
Gosh.
And so I was like, I wonder if there's a way to get these into children's hospitals. And so in the middle of this pandemic, I did a Kickstarter and raised $11,000 and had these kits made overseas. So I have a book called What Happens When a Kid Has Cancer, explains what cancer is, how it can affect a kid's day-to-day life, and it comes with a calendar with little static clings, and I'm in the process of donating them to hospitals right now.
That is so cool. Well, where can people go buy them, look at them, and follow you?
Oh, yeah, that would be awesome. My website is mightyandbright.com. And then I'm on Instagram mostly, which is Mighty and Bright Co.
Oh, wow. That is so cool. Well, this happens to be a podcast that a lot of child life specialists listen to and parents. And I think that a lot of families would benefit so much from what you have created. So thank you so much for taking something that was so horrible and turning it into something so beautiful for so many families.
Thank you so much, Katie. I'm just really want to get the word out because I know it really helped my family a lot.
Oh gosh, yeah, we're as child life specialists total proponents of calendars, predictability, routine, choices, and you've done all of that, and you've put it into this kit and this book and this calendar. So it is 100% needed, and I can't wait to go take a look at it.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to ask you one more question if you have the time. And I'd love to know, what has your daughter taught you through this whole experience?
She is so incredible. I think she's taught me what unconditional love is. And we have such a close relationship. I really try to talk to her about the fact that she's had to deal with things that are really difficult for most grown-ups, and that really validating her experience and her feelings about things has helped her a lot. But what I really want her to learn is that, after having gone through what she's gone through, she's more resilient than a lot of adults are. Because she's really impressed the heck out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's 10, and she has no perspective as far as how resilient she is. But man, I mean, she just impresses me every day. She's awesome.
Oh, she impresses me too, for sure. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you sharing your experience with all of us.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you so much, Sara. And you guys, mightyandbright.com will get you to all of those printable resources that she was telling you about, and you can learn more about her story and her organization there. Man, we are just right behind you, Sara, cheering you on as you navigate this post-cancer life, which people will tell you it never really goes away, right? You can get to that 5-year mark, but it lives with you forever and your entire family. So know that the Child Life On Call community is here beside you, believing in you, and thank you for being here and sharing your story. I look forward to seeing you guys next week when we have our 12-minute talk. Thanks for being here. Thank you for listening to the Child Life On Call podcast. I'm your host, Katie Taylor, and you can follow us at Child Life On Call on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please rate and review to make it easier for other families to find us. We have cute merch available at www.bonfire.com/store/childlifeoncall, and you can listen to more episodes and find resources at childlifepodcast.com.